Good morning and welcome to Kelly's Anesthesia Tips. This will be the last one for the year. So I wanted to do a few things and not spend a lot of time on it, but I want to share something that I have shared before, but as a friend of mine once said, I'll mention Jack Beecher by name, he said I may have forgotten more than he ever knew about anesthesia coding and billing. One thing is true, you spend this much time in it, there are things that pass you by that you get reminded of when you see something else, and this was one of them. So in 2018, I downloaded a central line insertion checklist template to share with people at a meeting, because I will tell you, a lot of what helps me keep up to date with everything is when I start researching to share information at meetings, and oftentimes for the YouTubes as well. So I was working on checking some research yesterday and ran across this again, and I went, that looks so familiar to me. So I dug out my old one, and I'm going to share these resources with you because I mentioned learning at this ABPM meeting in September that several of the attendees, and we had physicians in the room as well, we're having difficulties with denials for CVPs, for the catheters, for documentation purposes. And I didn't understand it, but I understand it a little bit better now, and I'm going to share these resources with you. So it may be something different that, and I almost hate to say this because the documentation requirements sometimes seem so onerous, but they're there. And we have to follow them. So we have to follow the guidelines, we have to follow the recommendations, we have to follow what insurance companies say we need to follow for them to pay for services. So what I'm going to be sharing with you is that template that I mentioned and what the recommendations are. Because based on the discussion that we had with the doctors, they may not be verifying this by x-ray. And it might be something that is in the protocol by the Joint Commission that is a requirement. And if that's the case, well, here we go. So I did share this with some of my longtime clients, but I've also done reviews where I haven't run across this problem yet. And I try to mention it, so this is for all of you, client or no, longtime client or not, friend or however you have to do your work in the anesthesia world. I hope this is helpful to you. So this is the first one. I'm going to give you the resources. I'm also going to include, they update this maybe every year. So what I give you for 2024, pardon me, check back to see if they update that in 2025. As I said, this one's been around since it looks like March of 2017. I downloaded it in 2018 and shared it at a meeting somewhere. And then we do have some practice guidelines from the ASA. We have the standards and practice parameters that we're all probably more familiar with, but they're not as descriptive about the documentation as these other resources are. So that's the first thing. Second thing I made a note of is new block codes. I just updated my website. I'm going to hop over real quick to show you for seminars and education. So when you go to my website, which is linked on my emails, here on the YouTubes, you just go over to the More tab and seminars and education. If I'm speaking at it, it'll be on one tab, but I don't speak at all the meetings, so I want you to know about all of them. So the ones I have for me so far this year, I do expect AIABPM, when that one gets settled, I'll add that information here as well. But for now, just go to the seminars and education tab. Here is your link. I keep it up to date. So I've already updated it for one I just learned about yesterday, and that's the new facial plane blocks. Very knowledgeable Dr. Mariano. Met him at the Philadelphia ASA meeting. Very, very knowledgeable. I'm excited about this one. We also have the ASA advance coming up in January in Atlanta. If you don't or aren't in the area or can't come to that one, as soon as AIA-BPM has their location, I'm going to add that. And this is more for clinical directors, but it might be helpful for your physician staff. It's in Tampa in March, which is really not a bad time to come visit Tampa. Okay, and then a couple of more notes. One, misinformation. I had this issue a lot of times when I was working and going to the meetings, and I would hear one person say something and another person say something else, and you're kind of stuck on who do you believe, what do you listen to? Well, ask for resources. If the resources aren't available, unfortunately, you're going to have to do some digging for yourself. I have always offered my services to try to help people find resources if they need them. I know a lot of them. In fact, I just mentioned sometimes I forget about some of them. But listen, they're out there, and if you need them, let me know. If you can't find them, check first, because you know you could be a good researcher too. So misinformation, sometimes you have to weed, separate the wheat from the chaff. I'm going to write an article on that eventually when I have time. I've got a couple of article ideas in my head. So speaking of ideas, YouTubes. I try to do at least one a month. I'm not always successful. I think I did do it this year. And if you have ideas or you're confused about something or you need information about how to do something or why something's done in the anesthesia world, if you need pain management expertise, that's Doris the Coder and Amy Turner are the two gurus for pain management. I like to say I'm certified in it. I speak it. I can audit a bit of it if I'm doing anesthesia. I try not to, because honestly, you want somebody as good with pain management as I think I am with anesthesia. That's where I have spent my entire career, with the exception of a few years for pain management, but I really love anesthesia more. Okay, I hope I kept that short and sweet. I will share these resources. Again, if you have ideas, send them in the comments. I wish everyone a happy end of year. Whatever you celebrate, I hope you celebrate it safely. I like to end with this one. Be kind to one another and generous with your knowledge. People are new coming into this. They need help. And those of us who have been around a while, we still need to bounce things off. So take care. Have a good end of year, and we'll see you in 2025.